Hello, once again. We're back with Wander and Wonder. We're doing just that. I thought today we might do a little bit of meta-analysis on the purpose of this channel. And, might as well just jump right into it. So pretty much, this channel is made for personal development, for specifically spiritual development, but hoping to branch out into just general, let's get better as people. Some people refer to it as raising their frequency, and that's fine, however you want to think of it. But it's doing things to benefit the body, to benefit the mind, and to get in touch with the spirit that is very lost on all of us. There's a body of knowledge which seems to speak to the fact that humanity is in a degraded state and that we are slowly going through the process, if left to the chaos of the world, of losing our ability to be in touch with the spirit. So ultimately, when I was younger and didn't have this relationship with, you could even call it the unseen realm, the spirit realm, like something greater than this material world. When I was younger, I felt much worse, much less able to make sense of the world, to create some sort of structure in my own life, to rise above the things that were most holding me down. And often it is that question answered by something greater, which can truly empower us to transform as individuals. And anyone who believes that they cannot transform as an individual, they cannot move to a higher level of existence, they cannot raise their frequency, simply isn't trying or isn't interested in trying. So I think the crux of this whole thing is you have to want, but you also have to be able to do what it takes. You have to want it so much that you're able to do what it takes to get there. And that's what it is. People claim that Zen and spirituality is effortless. And if you really ponder that, I think what this effortlessness really is this this feeling of conscious congruence. Like something in your brain is calling you to do something, and then you do it. Like if you're listening truly to an unfettered mind, and you carry out the tasks which it has in mind for you, that is, in a way, the voice of God. Now, that's not to say that one's inner dialogue can't be confused with a bunch of different voices, different forces, urges. And, that's a philosophical quandary as old as written history. You can look at the idea of the fractured self in Plato's Symposium, and it still applies today. We think about who we are, what makes us who we are, the world in which we live, and we're very much able to influence our perceptions, but we have to understand what it takes for the mind to adapt to a new set of circumstances. The people who run the news know exactly what it is that affects the mind insofar as to change it. It's repetition over time, Something as simple and hypnotic as the same thing, almost ritualistically at the same time. People wake up in the morning and they have their cup of coffee, and many people will watch the morning news or open the paper or scroll social media and they'll see exactly what it is that those companies want them to see. And if you're not aware of this, then you're probably a victim to it. So make a conscious effort to not absorb things from people you don't trust. Like, this is why we're able to set our feeds. You know, we can block certain things, we can follow other things. Like, don't be a slave to a shitty news feed. I'd like to open my mind a little bit to the fact that within the realm of technology, there's going to be both good and bad forces, you know? And I think that the outlier and somebody who's truly isolated themselves from the news media, from popular culture, from society, like just from society at large. Not to say that I'm so isolated, but certainly carry out a different path than most. I think people like me, and maybe people like you, should go on the internet and tell other people exactly what it is that we know, like what it is that we figured out. And if there has been anything, you know, worth putting off a material existence for me, that is to say, like, not moving forward, I guess, in terms of like having expensive things. You know, they say like the things you own end up owning you. You know, the old mortgage, like the death grip, the 40-year, 40-year contract, like however long. I don't have a lot of these things that tie me down, and the reason is because the realm of the spirit is very real to me. There are many things that over the last little while have simply lost their inherent meaning and have instead taken on a number of different meanings. I think this is almost the function of a symbol, you know, in a work of art, writing, visual art, like whatever it is. Like, we see something, it's not immediately spelled out exactly what it means, because it could mean a number of things, you know. And just as simple as something like color, you know, because we see, oh, you think of a poppy, for example, like Remembrance Day, and we think, okay, yeah, veterans and etc., etc. Hey, wait, isn't opium derived from a poppy? And you see how your brain can just go tangent to tangent. And there's also, oh, red, like just as a color embodied by the poppy. We're like, well, red, like, you know, Muladhara, like the root chakra, like we're looking at the stop sign, you know, the stop light, the red light. This is a universal symbol. And why does red make us stop? Why does red make us slow down? It's not an easy question to answer. I think often with, you know, I think often with things like blood or genitalia or lips. Like, these are things which in nature embody the color red. And, you know, whether it's self-preservation through having children, or whether it's a warning for danger, as to say, like, there's blood, like, this is not, you know, that's not good to do. Often blood associated with pain, or if it's not your own pain, you can hear somebody else suffering in a most undeniable way. And so what we have to understand is when we use words to communicate, we are simply putting placeholders, you know, in front of the real meaning. And these placeholders are signposts to guide people's minds into understanding what it is that we're trying to express. But unless they can move past the signposts to the destination, the words, you know, they might not make sense. I was listening to a Walt Whitman audiobook. I was somewhat in a daze, laying on my back. on a couch, leather couch, long one. I wanted to listen to Song of Myself by Walt Whitman, and I realized I was, you know, in, I guess in such a tired state that I was trying to follow this man reading, and often I read poems myself because I can take it at my own pace, and the words are so dense and you can unpack them in so many ways. But this one day when I was listening, I was not getting the words properly. Like, they were hitting, and one symbol I would see okay, but it wasn't. I was trying to listen too much to the words. And so what I did instead was just let the words play. As he would speak, and I'm sorry I don't have it memorized or anything like that, but he would speak of trees and forests and animals in the forest and different colors and the way that he was feeling, and I let it build the picture inside. Like, I let it occupy a perceived sensual space within, And I'm not talking like I dreamed it, I'm talking my imagination, and I let the words play. They act as signposts to guide me towards the true vision, of what that poem means to me. And I will never understand exactly what that poem means to someone else, because I am not them. I do not have the same life, and therefore the symbols, which I've come to understand, have different meaning to me than to someone else. And there are things that are universal in this world, like fire, water, earth, air. But the more specific things in life, like, for example, I had a young relationship. I was 14 or 15. One of my first girlfriends was super allergic to fish. So allergic, in fact, that if she even smelled it in a restaurant or in a kitchen, her throat would begin to swell up and she would need to have an EpiPen administered. When I think of a fish as a symbol, or when I use that in pieces of personal writing, I highly doubt that that would mean death or the chance of death to anyone else except me. Symbols offer a certain ambiguity to expression. That is to say that they're a little less specific than outright explanations, with language. Within language, the use of symbols can be used to express ambiguity and can be used in a way which is somewhat fractal. That's to say, we look at something and it has several meanings. I just have to cross this river right here in the dark on this log. So there are certain pieces of text, for example, that the Bible, that I believe are written in a way that they can be interpreted on different levels depending on one's level of understanding. I think these books have stayed with us, not just because they offer metaphysical structure or they offer a totalitarian morality, which seems to work for people often. I think the societies that embody the right morality are the ones that stick around. But I think that this book might also have stuck around because of its ability to express something which is lost on the profane masses. It is to say that it speaks in one way to them and in another way to people who have been initiated into understanding exactly where we've come from, like how this world has come to be the way it is. An understanding of history understanding of biology, an understanding of like ancient religion and mythology. That's really the only way to get to the bottom of all this. It's like if you are truly seeking, like you can't stop. And the problem with this is that people who are in charge of the dissemination of information on a mass scale know that the search for information can create absolute mania in people. This is not a feeling of satisfaction and high excitement so much as it is a feeling of like can't stop and mind is rolling, and you are sometimes just blown away by the things that you read, the things that you see, and oftentimes like those dark things will become your reality. People that get really into things like talk radio, podcasts, or YouTube videos, they're letting somebody else do the thinking for them. And in a lot of ways, that it can be effective if we are able to discern and listen and feel from within ourselves if something is true. But we have completely lost touch, well, many of us, with what it means to feel that something is true on the inside. We do have primitive senses which allow us to feel at a deeper level, and I don't think that logic and rationality should be held in the highest esteem above all else. We can look at levels of understanding. Oh, I gotta cross another river. Oh. Alright. We can look at levels of understand, like levels of, there's almost like this need to identify somewhat of a hierarchy of like, okay, we understand something in this way, but rationally, does it really make sense? If we're told to put our hand in a flame and to let ourselves be burned or else we will be shot, the physical animal response, on account of pain, is for us to pull our hand away once it is burned. But if it is explained to us that we will be shot if we pull our hands away, the rationale says take the burn, because the burn is better than to be shot. And that almost seems to place rationale in a scenario like that in higher esteem than the animal response, which I don't know. Is that emotional? Or is that primal? These are just words. We are creating structure within language. And none of it is going to mean the same thing to anyone else unless we can be sure that they've had the same experience, the same education. Sometimes I try to think of explaining the larger deceptions in this world, or even just things that are kind of left out of general knowledge. And time and time again I've come to find that it's simply not a task which can happen overnight. You can't just convince somebody that there is a spirit world. You might not ever be able to. You might not ever be able to convince somebody that the world is the way which you think it is. And if you really value your worldview above all others, you better be pretty sure. And I think that there's a certain humility in allowing each person, to have their own position on their own path. And unless you feel as though you've truly purified yourself, you know, you're like you truly are of like the highest nature, then I think that you should just work on yourself. You know, be a magnet, not a rope. If you're living well, people will take notice, and you know they'll ask you, like, how is it that you got so good at what it is you're doing? So this is the other thing. If you are interested in the path of seeking information, like you want to find things out about yourself, about the world, about the spirit, about your people, about everything, you're just interested in general knowledge, make sure you don't fall into some constructed category of being, you know, created by the society in which we live. Because that's exactly what happens to people who, you know, take the easy way to search. These websites, you know, Facebook or YouTube, that's usually where people find how-to videos. YouTube is like, they are programmed to make you watch, like, you know, a certain video in a certain order. Like the way in which those websites categorize you slowly as you interact with them and lead you in a certain direction with the recommended videos on the, you know, first section of the front page. It's by design trying to get you running in circles, you know, not able to act, to listen, and to, you know, to feel like from within, everything taking root, like your true evolution. That's not to say that reading isn't good, but if you're simply, you know, hanging on each word and, you know, trying to finish a book so you can finish that next book and you just get all the information in, are you really transforming as a person? I thought the whole reason that anyone would really try to look for information is because something didn't feel right, you know, that something was wrong either with themselves or with their world. And if you're just caught up reading all the time without actually, you know, applying everything that you know, then you're not making progress. You're just running in circles, and that's, you know, that's a system designed to make you run in circles. So what we have to do as individuals is create our own story. You know, we can use the technology if we want to, or we can have our own way. Like if you want to keep a notebook instead of posting everything on social media, then you can do that. But I think it's important to track your story, like figure out exactly where it is you're coming from, what you learn each day, and to not only read, but to act in the world. Like, if something doesn't feel natural, it feels like an act, right? And if you're not living well, sometimes it might mean that you have to do things which don't exactly feel natural. So, to act in the world, you know. Some people believe that we're simply spirits in bodies, that our existence is much more than this material life, and you know, that it's our responsibility to make people aware of the spiritual reality. People who've woken up often want to wake other people up. It's so interesting because alcoholics often want to serve their friends a drink. You know, I heard this thing, misery loves company. So that's to say, not to judge anyone else for anything that they're doing, you know, not to try to pull them in any direction, but to try to set an example just with action in the world. Whatever it is that you feel from within is right, you know. Your destiny, like your purpose on this earth, like the set of skills, the unique consciousness that you were given at birth, you need to put it all to use in this world and not let this life pass you by. Get out into nature. I think that's everything for today.